After all of the projects we've done aboard Avocet, I am pretty positive that Chris's biological makeup mostly consists of fiberglass at this point. Just think about all of the reconstruction, sanding, and fairing we've done. It's hard to believe that he would be anything but glass and resin at this point. Although I have fostered an affinity for laying glass, I can't say I enjoy the work once the sanders come out. Chris, on the other hand, embraces this aspect of the job and uses it as both an opportunity for an upper body workout and to refine his craft, which is why when he hatched the idea to completely redesign our Dodger, I supported it without any doubts.
The canvas Dodger we had inherited aboard Avocet had seen better days. The frame was wobbly, the dark blue canvas had been sun bleached, and perhaps the worst trait of all was that the Stratoglass was cloudy, making any sort of attempt to see through it impossible.
We originally had the idea to create a completely rigid hard Dodger and forgo the hassle of sewing, but at the advice of notable sailors, we decided to create a hardtop that could support solar panels with canvas sides that could be removed for easy cleaning and airflow on the particularly stuffy days at anchor.
Having researched plenty of DIY and professional Dodger setups, I had a concept in mind for how I wanted our Dodger to look, scribbling design after design on a notepad until I was happy with the final sketch. Then I got to work cutting the materials and bringing the drawing to life.
Here's a kind of basic idea here. The sheet of MDF here, and you see it's nice and thin. And then I'm just drilling through the old Dodger, so we are very committed at this point. And then I'm just using zip ties to basically go around where the tube is. That way it's going to give us that nice bow on either side. So I think I got a shape that I more or less like. Again, just eyeing it. I'm not doing anything scientifically or mathematically here, just drawing out a shape and seeing if it looks good on the boat. I figured that is probably the best thing to do. Step back on the boat, looking at it, playing with the solar panel here, making sure that it fits in a way that is conducive to how I want it to work. So if it's sitting right about there, I have plenty of room for a grab rail right there.
Using a pretty basic fiberglass construction plan, we decided on using a factory-scored honeycomb core called Nitaplast at 1 inch thick, which could bend to match the arch of the previous Dodger. This material is a great option for marine construction given its lightweight, rot resistance, and flexibility.
The first day, Chris cut the core to shape, utilizing the old Dodger as a template and support to work on top of, ensuring we would create the perfect arch and soft corners with our new design.
After careful consideration, I decided that 2 layers of 17-08 fiberglass on each side of the Dodger would give us the desired strength.
He then cut the fiberglass cloth for the top skin, making sure to overlap where the edges of the glass met to ensure there were no weak spots. Since the size of the cloth was so large, it was tough to tackle laying the resin alone. So Chris enlisted the help of our friend Mitch to assist with a layup in my absence.
A little unforeseen thing that's happening right now is that the weight of the epoxy and the glass is kind of overpowering the mold that I have. So it's starting to dip down in the front and in the back. You can see here, look at it from the side. See how it's high there and it begins to dip down right there. So I've been placing boat hooks, sub handles, and lastly a ruler and a monopod as little supports. See the polarity of all of this right now. I've got one boat hook, one sub handle, another sub handle with battens going across everything, and yeah, I guess it's working. Doesn't mean it doesn't look crazy. all of the glass is on, and right now I'm just spreading out some fairing compound. If you get your fairing compound down with the epoxy not dry on the glass, you get a chemical bond in between the fairing compound and the fiberglass, and you don't have to sand the fiberglass in order to put on the fairing compound. So you end up saving a lot of material on fiberglass when you don't have to sand it, because sanding it inherently takes away thickness, and also you don't have to sand. So it's a win-win. You're getting a coat on right now. It's not pretty, but it at least fills in the voids from the material of the 1708 enough to get a decent looking flat surface right off the bat.
I came back from work to check out what Chris has done with his day, and I swear he sneezes and things get done. It's kind of magic, but it looks great so far. Excited to see how he finishes it up.
Once dry, we removed the obstacle of support beams and went to relocate the Dodger top dockside. But Chris realized that the top was not as rigid as he had intended, which made sense considering there was no glass on the underside to structurally support the lateral and torsional forces. This was a perfect opportunity to implement a design technique that would benefit us in more ways than one.
Using 2 sheets of Divinycell, a 1/2 inch thick and 2 inch by 55 inches long, I laid stringers parallel across the beam of the Dodger top and secured it in place with 1708 in between each layer and on top of it all. This increased the structural integrity of the top while also creating the perfect raised platform for our solar panels to mount to. With this unexpected creation complete, we moved the top dockside on 2 sawhorses so we could finish the glassing and fairing of the underside. Okay, so today is the last day of building the hardtop. We're going to put on the last 2 layers of 1708 on the bottom edge of the top, and after that it's really just a bunch of fairing and then obviously painting to finish it up. I've already gotten the metalwork started with my good buddy Brian. We're going to be building a frame out of aluminum, and it's actually pretty simple, so I think that's all going to come together nicely. Right now I'm just running conduit inside of the core so I can run wires for the solar panels, and I want to put 2 lights on the underside to illuminate the cockpit a little bit more at night instead of wires dangling about and not looking very pretty. Now is the best time to channel out some of this core material and inlay some conduit, and then I can again run my wires nice and seamlessly, so you never would know that there would be any wires inside of it. Using a generous amount of thickened epoxy, I glued the conduit tubes in place and then resumed with the glassing. Unfortunately, Marissa had to work while this part of the project was happening, but thanks to our incredible friends Quincy and Alan, I had all the hands I needed to finish the job. And just like that, Dodger is 99% done. I have like this much more glassing to do, and it's done.
With the entire Dodger top glassed and faired, we could then determine where the 4x32 aluminum mounting plates would go. These, right here. This process looked pretty funny as we hoisted the now fairing compound pink hardtop above the cockpit using a Dyneema bridle that we stabilized with a rope off the backstay and 4 lines on each corner anchoring the top to the boat. This allowed us to find the proper Dodger height and tilt. We decided to build our frame out of 1 1/4 aluminum tubing for a few reasons. It's durable, easy to work with, cheaper than other metals, and light, complementing the lightweight top, which is very important considering it would be high off the waterline.
I have gone around a million times making sure that these little legs are properly positioned on both the starboard and the port side. And now that I have that done, I think the last step is really just to grab the drill and cut it. Thanks to the skills of our friend Metal God Ryan, our metal frame design was brought to life. With the mounting points mapped out, we were able to de-rig our levitating hardtop and get back to work glassing, starting with our 2 1/4-inch G10 backing plates that the aluminum frame would be mounted to. After 3 days of glassing, fairing, and planning, we moved the Dodger top to the Ventura Harbor Boat Yard where I could do some serious sanding before getting wet and wild with the primer and paint. After hours of glorious sanding, I carefully elevated the top so I could ensure not a single spot went untouched by the 2 coats of Tough Stuff primer. Naturally, as soon as I finished my last coat of primer, all hell broke loose.
Naturally, we didn't catch it on film, but it fell. So Chris is not a happy camper. He's around here somewhere pacing, trying to find more twine. I'm trying to tell him it's gonna be okay, but he doesn't believe me, so wish me luck. With Chris's help, we suspended the top in air once more and we could assess the damage. Fortunately, there were only a few areas that would need new fairing and primer, while the majority of the unit remained remarkably unscathed.
Did they know what happened?
Yeah.
Damage isn't that bad, surprisingly. Luckily, I made this thing very ridiculously strong, so definitely gonna need some fairing in the morning, but I'll throw some click fair on it and hopefully be able to get this thing primed tomorrow. After a little reparation work from the damage of the day prior, I finished priming the Dodger top for the auger paint that we had our friends at the yard spray to save us some time and materials. Had we opted to roll and tip ourselves, we would have had to spend 3 days at it because there's 3 coats and you have to sand in between each day. Before uniting the pieces of the Dodger together aboard Avocet, Chris installed a bolt track for the canvas sides and ran the wiring through the conduit. So I just finished the hardtop to the point where it is ready to be installed on the boat for the last time, which is very cool because I've lost count of how many times I've taken it on and off this boat, fitting it and fairing it and painting it and, you know, all that jazz. I cannot wait, so without further ado, let's put it on the boat.
We carefully carried the Dodger top from the dock to the boat, doing our best not to drop it in the water. I nearly guillotined myself as I got my head stuck between the top and the frame, but luckily Chris was there to help me maneuver out of the sticky situation.
So just got the starboard side all bolted in finally for the last time, and wow, is it strong. This is the first time I have all of the bolts in, not only on this frame member here, but also the gusset over there, and it is wicked strong. I mean, it is like, doesn't move a millimeter. So this, in contrast to our, like, this is a pretty good, it's about like what the old one felt like. So it's a lot stronger, a lot stronger. Looks great. So anyways, I got to do the port side now, and then once that's done, I'm actually going to start working on canvas. With construction done, the time had come to pull out our trusty Thompson Sailrite machine and bolts of Sunbrella fabric to begin perhaps the most challenging part of the entire project, sewing. With guidance from Mitch, who had worked with a canvas shop before, we felt confident in tackling this critical part of our Dodger creation, jumping right in to get the job done.
What? There's your finger.
With the materials in hand, Mitch offered a technique that was new to me, where you don't use a template. Instead, you stretch the canvas out over where the finished product will be, using pins to form the shape and hold it in place for the sewing. Although this worked well for the front panel, the complex curves of the 2 side panels proved to be too difficult to manage with the Sunbrella. So we resorted to using some Canvex templating material that was graciously gifted to us by the crew of Valhalla. So Mitch, why do we have half plastic, half canvas?
Well, because we made a mistake with the canvas, and this is the only part that worked out right.
So we just made the sides out of this templating plastic. Mitch is marking them up right now, and then after that we're gonna pull everything off and take it back to the loft, quote unquote, and start seeing how we can start putting things together.
After a day of trial and error, Chris had the templates needed to make the cuts in this umbrella that would become our Dodger sides.
The following day, I found myself in the Valhalla sail loft, which is our friend's storage unit that has essentially been transformed into a safe haven for sewing. Using Lifetime Thread by Sailboat, I had sewed the binding, chafe protection, and some zippers in place, leaving the 3 panels ready to test fit. Fortunately, everything fit as it should, surprisingly. How does it look? How are we feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good about it. There's some little holidays here, but considering that I only did this for a living for like 3 months, and that was 2 years ago, I'm pretty happy with what we've
We
come
also
up with.
changed up the method on these panels back here.
We did.
This was using templated material, so
Which
I had
I've
never
never
done
done.
that. He had never done that. That was a newbie for both of us.
Back in the sail loft, Chris busted out these updates, installing the remaining 2 zippers, then sewed the Tuffic windows into place before cutting out the canvas. The Tuffic material comes with a plastic protective sheet exactly for this purpose, so you don't accidentally scratch the final surface while sewing. This is when the project really came together. Seeing the navy blue canvas attached to the Dodger was like icing on a cake. But we were still missing the cherry.
The Dodger was nearly done with all of the structural, aesthetic, and protective bits in place. But we still needed to install our solar panels on top so we could start farming the sunshine. We've been holding on to 2 Renogy compact 100-watt panels for about a year or so, just waiting for the right moment to purposely install them aboard Avocet. Realizing we had room for an additional panel, we relocated one of the panels that was affixed to the side of the boat, so we had 300 watts on top of the Dodger instead of 200.
Mounting the panels to the stringers was simple after drilling 4 small holes to accommodate the 1/4-inch G10 tubing and 3/32 pins. By securing the panels with pins, we could remove them easily for cleaning or replacing.
This project combined a lot of DIY elements like fiberglass, metalwork, and sewing, making it a very well-rounded project. Although we had a lot of the necessary skills under our belt to execute this project on our own, it would have taken a lot longer or perhaps included more trials and errors without the foresight and guidance of our friends.
With that said, we would like to formally thank Mitch, Quincy, Alan, and Elizabeth for their extra set of hands and sewing advice, Ryan the Metal God for once again working his magic, and last but certainly not least, our friend Dale at the Ventura Harbor Boatyard for the last-minute accommodations and paint services. Chris and I are so grateful to have had so many hands involved with the history of Avocet's project list and cannot wait to make all of the hard work, sweat, blood, and tears pay off soon.
Speaking of pay, if you want to know the cost breakdown and all the nitty-gritty details that didn't make it in this video, check out the full blog post on our website, www.svavocet.com.
Thanks for watching. We wish you all fair winds
Following seas.
and look forward to sharing what's next on Sailing Avocet.